Chess Master All Rats at ICC, here to analyze the Team 4545 Game of the Week for event number 58 in the second week. And let's have a look at this game. Okay, C3 Sicilian, it's called. In some respects, it transposes to the Smith-Morr Gambit declined. I've been on both sides of this position before. Black should have no trouble equalizing. The advantage of playing this line is whatever Sicilian black wanted to play is kind of set back. Like if he wants to go into a dragon variation or a Najdorf, well, he can't do it. But like I say, black will equalize. And there's a lot of theory to this, and the game stays in book for a while. But here, white makes this very puzzling move, and he spends 4 minutes on it. And I was kind of surprised to see this move. Okay, the number one reason people lose games on Team 4545 League, and I've done, over 150 of these videos, the number one reason is they're not taking their time. Now, he took his time on this move, so we're not going to fault him for taking his time. The number two reason people lose games on Team 4545 League videos is because they don't develop their pieces, and suddenly they get a bad game. Now, white actually gets away unpunished for this move. It's kind of remarkable, and I'm trying to come up with a justification for what was white thinking, since white's not saying, well, I played knight h4 because... Well, the knight has no scope here. It's not going to g6. It's not going to f5. Now, the only thing I can think of is white's planning some kind of a pawn assault. But here's the problem. This back row. It's not developed. It's not in action. None of those pieces are helping. It's just a premature move. White, I don't know what the book theory is. I'm sure we're still in book. Castles is probably fine. Knight c3 is probably fine. There we go. Well, come on, make the arrow. There it goes. A little lag. All right. But anyway, knight h4, and as I say, he gets away unpunished. And here it might have been prudent to just bring the bishop back to e2, but the bishop is then directed towards the king side, which white's obviously trying to do. You can't really put it on d3 because d4 will hang. But anyway, let's see what happens. Now white does develop, and now here we go. Lo and behold, the knight steps back. And the sad part is that white's actually ahead in development, even though he's wasted 2 tempos. He's gotten away with this little transgression unpunished. And the game stays relatively even for the longest time, as we will see. But white's got a piece out, and he's castled. Black has 1 piece out. He's not castled. So white's still preserving the advantage of the first move. And a couple things to note in this position. Since white's abandoned whatever idea that he may have had, it's gone. Black is actually one with a break in this position. Black can play c5 at some point and secure himself a protected pass pawn. White will have an outside pawn majority, but again, this type of position is essentially even. But white's been able to get away with this transgression. Theoretically, white could have had, because of his little knight move, he could have had this on h4. He could have had this knight out and this bishop out, or maybe put the rook on c1. Or the queen on e2. White could have had 2 extra moves here, but he doesn't. So even though black can't really take advantage of it, I guess black's fortunate that white doesn't have that extra development. Anyway, white might have had more had he. We'll come back and look at that in just a bit. Well, actually, let's do it now. Let's get it over with. Let's assume white doesn't play knight h4. Let's just go back and do what I said. Okay, castle a6. I'll just go ahead and take. That's what I wanted to do. And now this comes in, and as I was saying, white gets an extra move, right? See the difference in the position? This position and the other one, the game continuation, The white queen is not on e2, and the white knight is not c3. Not off queen e2 is the best move. Maybe black can try to generate something with a5 and bishop a6. But I'm not trying to. When I analyze, I'm just trying to be look at some developing moves, because that's always a good way to analyze. Analyze developing moves. They're not necessarily the moves that are going to be played, but we're not trying to prove each one. We're just trying to get a generalization, see what white can accomplish. So let's just forget this plan that there's a possible way to do that and continue development. And where do you want to put this bishop? Well, let's put him on e3. Let's just overprotect d4. Okay, and then let black castle. And we'll swing a rook to the open file. Hey, there's a target. And now I want to get a knight to c5. So now maybe it's time for black to play c5. Uh-oh, maybe he can't do it. Well, maybe he can. I'm just kind of playing around. But white's got a quite reasonable looking position here. Look at this. Knight a4. Now you got this outpost. So maybe what I should have done is had black play for that c5 break. But I'm just making examples to show how missing two tempos in development can make all the difference in the world. Because if you know what you're doing, that's what you'll play these moves, and it's up to your opponent to recognize what you're trying to do. If your opponent doesn't see your plan and you execute your plan, you're going to end up with a great position just by default. Okay, now let's take this just a little bit further. Let's develop the black queen, and I just thought of something I wanted to show. Suppose black decides to liquidate everything and saying, "Oh, opposite color bishops, that's a draw." Well, it's not a draw, because there's rooks and queens on the board, and the general rule of thumb in opposite colored bishops positions, when you have other pieces on the board, is the attacking side is a piece ahead. So we're just evaluating this position. Oops. It's not white's move, it's black's move. But white wants to try to continue with some kind of a kingside attack, maybe provoke some dark squared weaknesses. If this pawn can be forced to move, suddenly the white bishop can infest the black kingside. Now, of course, none of this is forced. It's just a generalization. We can't look at every possible variation. We'd be here all day. I'd pass out after a few hours of this. But this just shows you what development does. It gives you chances. Knight h4 does nothing. Okay, it does absolutely nothing. So let's get back to the game continuation, and let's see. Black decides not to play for the c5 break, and he still has it, but he can't do it now. He could do it any time now, but he doesn't do it. So let's just take a look. What's wrong with this move? It's going to give white an outpost on d4, but hey, you have to expect that. It's an even game. The pawn on e5 might be a little bit of a problem at some point. White might have to weaken his kingside to protect it, or tie a piece down to its defense. But I think black has everything he wants here. Black's objective is to equalize, and then try to go somewhere with it. So black had the c5 break and didn't play it. Well, he does okay. But I'd like to see white try to get a knight in on c5, and he doesn't try to do that. Now black's got some play on the queen side, and white kind of fiddles around here. Now h3, what does that do? Was black trying to put something on g4? No, he wasn't. Okay, so I don't understand h3 at all. It's just not a useful move. How much time did white spend on it? Well, it looks like he spent 2 minutes, when you throw the increment back in. What should white do here? Well, he can take the pawn, and A2 might be a little bit of a weakness, but black's got his play here. Objectively you want to double rooks, but you have to watch out for the pin. That's why I say, well, go ahead and take the pawn. Okay, take the pawn. Double rooks. A2 is well protected. Can black get c5 in now? Yeah, maybe he can. Let's see. He's got enough defenders on it, so maybe white needs to take. And now you get this square back, and we're in something similar like I was talking about before. The black knight's good. You don't have time to stop and pick this guy up. Wait, can't play bishop d3 because c8's going to hang. But it's just a possible variation, and it still seems about even. But h3 doesn't really help white. But again, he can't be punished for it. So what's gone wrong with black's game? White got away with knight h4 and knight f3. Maybe what black should have been doing was hitting for c5 much earlier. I don't know. This is how you develop an analytical skill. You're not analytical powers. You look at possible variations. Now what white's done is white's created a hole on c4. Black doesn't try to occupy that square. So that, in a way, that's kind of puzzling. And now the queen side is locked up. But black sees a weakness on b4 and sets his sights on that. Okay. But now it looks like maybe black's trying to get into c4, but then he doesn't. And now black puts the pressure on the b4 pawn. And white can't play knight d3 with the idea of bringing it into c3 because black will play a deflecting move and eliminate the defender of b4. See, there it goes. And black has bagged a pawn. Okay? So black stopping white from getting into c5. It looks like a great square, but white's not really able to find an effective way to get there with a knight, so he sticks a rook there. And black chases it out, and back it goes. Now black could repeat the position. Maybe white's hoping for a draw. But black doesn't want to draw. He's got nearly a 300 rating point advantage. So he decides to set his sights on the b4 square. Okay, and white doubles up. Black puts the pressure on. White defends. Now, it's an interesting comment I just said. White defends. One problem with the white setup is that's what white's doing. Look at how many of his pieces are defending his position. Okay, the queen's guarding two pawns, right? The rook is guarding a pawn. So this rook's a defensive piece. This knight is guarding a pawn. This rook is just there. It's not doing anything. The c-file is blocked. This knight is not doing anything. It's maybe got some indirect pressure on d5, but not enough. Black doesn't have to take with the c-pawn. The knight's supporting an f5 break, but white's got his forces concentrated on the queen side. So white doesn't really have a whole lot here. Let me get rid of the arrows so I can make it black's turn. Well, let's see what black's doing. Black's knight's attacking. His rook is attacking. His queen is attacking. This bishop has a nice diagonal. Now this rook is not doing much, but black's got a more active game. Yet he can't really do anything. So white's kind of sitting here and saying, "I dare you to beat me." Okay. So now black just creates some error or luft, as we call it, in the on the back row. He doesn't know what to do, but white bags this pawn, and so in a way, white's playing this super defensive game, but black's activity are keeping the game close to even. And now the rook goes out of play. It was not in play on c1. Now it goes further out of play. So black's got the more active pieces. He definitely has compensation for the pawn. White needs to develop some kind of plan here. Now, if you want to do anything with a pawn, knight e1, knight d3, knight c5. That's what you want. You want a good square for that knight. But you can't do it because the knight's tied down to guarding this knight. You know, White can't move the knight on b3. White's all tangled up. You know, rook b3 with the idea of being able to move the knight. I mean, not to e3, but to e1. You know, White's just up a pawn, but he's tied up. And c5 still beckons. White would like to play this, this, and this. But at the same time, while White's busy doing that, maybe Black's trying to get to c4. Let's see, he can't get to d6. So he's got to get to b6. How does he get there? It's a little tricky. Knight has to get to c7, which it can't get to. And then the rook's in the way. So, you know, even though White's down a pawn, White's actually got the better game now. He's managed to he's played this defensive game, but Black hasn't proved anything. So something's gone wrong with the Black game, because White's just a little bit better, even though he's defensive. Black's got some compensation still, but something's gone wrong with Black's game, and I'm not quite sure what it is. It's just a strange game, to say the least. Okay, now White's got a suddenly White's pieces are springing to life. The queen's active, threatening a pawn with check. Okay, Black's got to deal with that. He does, and bingo. White's won another pawn. White is ahead 2 pawns. So if you're Black, you know, you got to do something here, or this game can go downhill quickly. But Black has some play in the center, and gives him close to adequate compensation. Now Black's got his pawn back, but White's got these monster pass pawns that can start running, and there they go. And here's the point I think White started to go wrong. I think he needs to play rook b4 and eliminate this pawn on d4. Then he's a solid pawn up, and these 2 pawns on the queen side are always a danger to run. But White's kind of running out of time here. Let's see, what did it? He's got 10 minutes left. He makes this move rather quickly. He barely uses his increment. I mean, you see a pass pawn, you want to push it. I mean, just in general principles, it makes sense. But Black finds some resources here. He starts activating his knight. You know, that knight was out of play earlier. Now it's getting back in the game. Now White takes with the knight, and now there's some pressure on d4. And now White can't play rook b4 because of the pin. He could have done that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he couldn't have. No, he could have done it with the knight still on c2, because the knight can take back on b4. He can't do it with the knight on d4. Okay, so this is just a flat-out mistake, and just throws away the pass pawn that White had, and the game's back close to even again, and White just kind of goes downhill. Suddenly, Black is the one threatening stuff on the king side, you know, and the whole idea, looking back at the knight h4 move, was that White had maybe ambitions of attacking on the king side. And then I pointed out again, maybe this is the time for f4, f5, but then all of White's heavy artillery is on the queen side, and there it is. It's still there. So White's got to deal with some pressure here. So his queen becomes the defensive piece, and Black has a tactic. Bingo. Okay, got leg. Come on, make the move. Don't do this to me. While we're waiting for the thing to catch up, it's always going to play several moves. Okay, let's back it up. Okay. Takes. Now he drops this rook, and now the a3 pawn's a goner. Well, it will be here in a second. And Black just improves his position. And Black's brings the queen in, threatening this very annoying check. And white decided to resign here. Really, there's no defense. White needs to cover his second rank, and black can just pick up this pawn and pretty much win at his leisure. So white had a strength, some outside pass pawns, and he misplayed his hand, and black came through. So certainly a unique game of the week. White, for all of his interesting strategy, ended up with a better game, but then suddenly the tables turned on him. But let me back up here. Let's talk about that Rook B4 move that I think gives white some practical winning chances. Okay, what's black going to do? Okay. Well, let's consider bringing the knight into play. Let's not help white out and improve the position of his pieces. Well, now white can get away with taking the pawn on d4. Okay. Now the white queen is nicely centralized, and the pawn looms a threat. Now, what do you want to do with black? Bring the knight in c4, maybe. You want to bring the knight into e4? Maybe. That might not be a bad move. Try to generate... Oh, wait, you got a rook hanging on a4. Okay. If you retreat the rook, then suddenly this pawn might become a force to be reckoned with. I think black has a difficult position to solve. I'm not saying he doesn't have resources or can't find resources, but I'm just saying, for all of white's shortcomings being on the defensive, he was actually in love with the potential to win this game, and the game turned. So I was saying a couple points. What went wrong with black's game? How did this happen? How did white play super defensive chess and end up with winning chances? So we'll give credit to white for coming up with those winning chances. Let me go back to move 15, and that would be go. So we type in back 52. That should get us close. 52 half moves. Yeah, queen d2. Okay, he didn't. c5's out of the question here, so let's back up just a little bit more. Okay. So before playing bishop e7, let's play c5 right now, because when the bishop goes to e7, if white takes, black spent a tempo developing the bishops. So let's play c5 right here. Even though black is not developed, neither is white. Okay. I don't think it's a good idea for white to take on c5 and develop the black bishop, but let's look at this. And remember, white could have had a similar position to this with 2 extra tempos had he not sent his knight to h4. Now, let's go ahead and take. The reason is we want to develop the bishop, and we don't want to lose that little tempo, though it really shouldn't matter. Now white's got 2 pieces developed in his castle. Black is slightly behind in development, but black's got some freedom for his pieces. Now let's develop another white piece. Let's castle. Where do you want this bishop? I think it's maybe better on d7. The reason I say that is it's on b7. It's just blocked. Or hey, let's go back to the idea that we can't play that. We want to. I mentioned earlier getting it to a6. Let's go ahead and try that. Okay, it's white's move. Let's develop a piece. Now let's go for a6. Although that weakens d5. I mean, not d5, b5, bishop a6, knight c7 is tricky. Takes. Do we want to Desperado this critter. Oh, we got a knight loose. Okay. We'll take. White takes. Black's fine. You know, black's not getting an advantage, but black should be fine. Now you don't have. You can always delay a6 and you know, go ahead and put the bishop on b7. I mean, delay a5. Put the bishop on b7 and think about getting it into a6 in another 10-15 moves. We can just hold on to the b5 square and play this. White develops, black develops, white develops, black develops. I mean, you know, the game's relatively even here. But for what it's worth, black has a protected pass pawn. Maybe it'd be more prudent to put the rook on the b file so that we can consider having some pressure down here. But oh, there's one, you know, black has knight the c4 square, so maybe white will spend a tempo to keep him out of there. You know, he did do that in the game. Let's see, so knight c3 takes, bishop e7. Let's go ahead and play b3, but white's spending a tempo to do that. Oh, castle, bishop e3, bishop b7, rook c1, queen d7, queen d2, and like I say, one of these rook moves. And then again, black has the a5, a4 break. I think this gave black a freer game, and it was certainly it's certainly the plan I would consider. Now, naturally, this is just one variation of many, but it just surprised me that white actually ended up with the better position after his transgression of 9 knight h4, and you know, white probably deserved better. Even though he played defensive chess, he had a good game, but he just couldn't keep it up. Anyway, peculiar game, different than most. Congratulations to the winner. Good play by both sides for the most part, and thanks for your time for having a look at this video. Take care.